Welcome to The Edit with your host, Vivian Cole. Brought to you by Vogue Media Agency, the podcast where branding, visibility, and influence are curated with intention. Each week, we cut through the noise to explore strategy, storytelling, and what it really takes to build a brand that's seen, heard, and remembered.
Welcome back to The Edit. I'm Vivian Cole. Today, we're editing scale. Because scale is one of the most misunderstood stages of growth, it's often celebrated, chased, and romanticized, but rarely examined with honesty. And that's why so many brands struggle the moment they start to grow. Most brands don't fail because they don't grow. They fail because they grow without structure. Growth on its own is not success. Growth is pressure. And pressure reveals everything that already exists beneath the surface. When a brand begins to scale, weak systems break. Processes that were manageable at a small size suddenly collapse. Unclear messaging fractures into multiple interpretations. Informal decisions become liabilities. What once felt flexible begins to feel chaotic. Scale doesn't create problems, it exposes them. That's why scale is not expansion. It's reinforcement. Strong brands scale what already works. Weak brands scale chaos. If something is unclear at a small size, it becomes confusing at a larger one. If something is inefficient early on, it becomes exhausting as demand increases. If leadership is reactive, scaling amplifies that reactivity across the entire organization. This is where many brands get caught off guard. They assume growth will make things easier automatically. More revenue, more resources, more opportunities. But without structure, growth often feels heavier instead of lighter. Decisions take longer. Communication becomes messy. The brand feels harder to manage instead of more stable. If growth feels heavier instead of easier, that's not success, that's a warning. Sustainable scale is about building systems that support demand, not chasing demand without preparation. It's about clarity in roles, clarity in offers, clarity in standards. It's about knowing what must remain consistent as everything else expands. One of the biggest mistakes brands make during growth is trying to do more of everything, more services, more platforms, more initiatives, more complexity. But scale doesn't reward excess, it rewards focus. Strong brands simplify as they grow. They refine their offers instead of multiplying them. They standardize what works instead of reinventing constantly. They protect their core message instead of diluting it to appeal to everyone. Scale requires discipline. It requires saying no to opportunities that don't align with the structure you're building. It requires resisting the urge to add complexity just because resources allow it. It requires understanding that not every revenue opportunity is worth the operational cost it creates. True scale creates leverage, not burnout. If your brand depends on you being everywhere, approving everything, solving every problem, and making every decision, it is not scalable. It is fragile, and fragility becomes visible under pressure. Scaling well means designing the brand so it can function without constant intervention. That means systems instead of improvisation, standards instead of exceptions, clear decision-making frameworks instead of constant negotiation. This is especially important for leadership. As brands grow, leadership must shift. What worked at a smaller size often becomes the bottleneck at a larger one. Leaders who don't adapt end up overwhelmed, reactive, and exhausted. Leaders who understand scale redesign how they operate. They stop asking, "How do we do more?" and start asking, "How do we do this better?" They recognize that growth is not about speed, it's about sustainability. Here's something worth reflecting on. Growth magnifies culture. If the culture is healthy, growth strengthens it. If the culture is unclear or misaligned, growth accelerates dysfunction. That's why scale should never outpace clarity. Clarity in vision, clarity in values, clarity in execution. Without clarity, scale creates noise instead of momentum. Now let's pause for a reflection moment. If your brand doubled tomorrow, what would break first? Would it be your communication, your systems, your capacity, your messaging, your leadership bandwidth? That answer is not a hypothetical problem. It's a diagnostic tool. It shows you exactly where your attention needs to go before growth accelerates. Because the goal is not just to grow. The goal is to grow well. Scale should create stability, not stress. Momentum, not mess. Confidence, not confusion. That is the Scale Edit. You've been listening to The Edit with Vivian Cole, brought to you by Vogue Media Agency. To build a brand that scales with structure, clarity, and intention, visit voguemedia.us. Until next time, edit for sustainability.
Thanks for listening to The Edit with Vivian Cole, brought to you by Vogue Media Agency. Be sure to subscribe for more insights, share this episode with your network, and join us next week for another conversation on building brands with clarity, confidence, and impact. Visit voguemedia.us.
Vogue Media Agency offers comprehensive services to help small to medium-sized businesses, faith-based and nonprofit organizations, content creators, and entrepreneurs establish and grow their online presence. Focusing on website design, landing pages, social media management, podcast training, branding, weblog creation, and public relations, Vogue Media Agency provides a convenient one-stop solution for clients looking to elevate their digital footprint. What sets us apart is our personalized service and niche expertise. We are your marketing consultants. Contact us today.
To contact Vogue Media Agency, call 212-470-2730 or visit voguemedia.us.